Hello and welcome to the program. For the first time in 20 years, the Israeli Prime Minister will visit Ukraine. Benjamin Netanyahu will fly to Kyiv on August 18th and meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He will also attend a remembrance ceremony for all those killed at Babyn Yar during the Second World War. Now, what to expect from this visit? To discuss this, we're joined in our studio today by Sergiy Korsunsky, who is the director of the Hennadii Udovenko Diplomatic Academy of Ukraine. Hello, and thank you for joining us. So, first question, as we said, they're going to meet on August 19. Netanyahu is scheduled to arrive in Ukraine 1 month before the September 17th Israeli parliamentary election. Some experts say that Netanyahu's visit also has the potential of helping him politically. What's your stance on that?
It's quite possible. Let's remember that Babyn Netanyahu is a very savvy politician. He's in politics for more than 20 years. First time he was elected in 1996 as Prime Minister of Israel. He's leader of the major political force Likud. So for him, definitely the situation which is his now quite uneasy, because there are early parliamentary elections. They were not able to form the coalition after the last election, so he is now quite resolved to get back to power. From this point of view, there are two issues in one package. On one hand, definitely there are like 500,000 up to 1 million of Jews who, repatriants, they call it Aliyah in Israel, from Ukraine, and they normally, they feel like positive attitude toward Ukraine. So for Bibi, it's quite important to show that he cares about Ukraine. But not less important issue, that's a tradition of Orthodox Jews to visit Ukraine quite often, and specifically on Rosh Hashanah, on the Jewish New Year, because of Uman story. They go to Uman. Tens of thousands of those Orthodox Jews, they come to meet the Jewish New Year. And as you probably know, and there are problems in the airports with crossing the border. They're often stopped by our bodyguards. Sometimes it's justified, sometimes they claim unjustified. But reciprocity is that there were problems for Ukrainians entering Israel. We have visa-free regime, but often Israel is just turned back our citizens in Ben Gurion Airport. So from this point of view, it's quite important that we would finalize the solution to this problem on both hands. And for Bibi, it's very important to show to Orthodox Jews that he cares about them too. And this is not just because of Jewish religion, but because they are part of the political party, Shas, which are member of coalition, normally, traditionally. And Minister of Internal Affairs in Israel, which is a very important person, normally he is Orthodox Jew from this party. So that means he would show first positive attitude toward Ukraine, and second, that he cares about Orthodox Jews visiting Ukraine with unabridged, and they would be welcomed and not stopped at the Boryspil airport.
So using foreign policy to settle with some problems in with domestic policy, because
this is normal.
This is what
happens all the time.
But because let's face it, these days for Benjamin Netanyahu, the situation for the Israeli Prime Minister is a bit complicated. He's facing a certain accusation of corruption. Do you think that it might help him going through it, and it might help him consolidate his position and going through this ordeal?
I'm not sure about corruption, but definitely that would help him to consolidate his position. And another message, which will be probably floated around this visit, is already visible on the headquarters building in Tel Aviv. There are two big posts. One where Netanyahu shaking hands with President Trump. On the other one, he's doing the same with President Putin. So, and that is like a show to all the Israel that this Prime Minister is not just a Prime Minister, but the somebody who can handle two biggest and the most important countries for Israel. United States is traditional supporter, huge Jewish lobby, but sometimes a complicated relations, and with Obama, relations were quite tough. Sometimes there were even scandals when Netanyahu was visiting United States without even informing White House and Washington that he is visiting. That was quite surprising, events. On the other hand, the position of Russia in the Middle East is extremely important
and complex,
very complex. And if you kindly remember how they now handle Syria with Iran, which threatens to destroy Israel, and with Turkey, which is now in quite, I would say, difficult relations with Israel, very tough relations. So for Bibi, it was absolutely mandatory to have personal connections with Putin, that he would be able to call Putin whenever happens. It doesn't mean that they completely on the same tune with Putin. But when it comes to the survival of Israel, and that is exactly the point, they would stop at nothing. So even they will shake hands with devil. That's an explanation why Bibi was on May 9 on a Red Square with Putin, with this sign of victory. That is very important for Bibi, and probably his experience in dealing both with Trump and with Putin will be interesting for us.
And which brings me to my next question: how was this presence of Netanyahu on the Red Square? How was it perceived in Ukraine? And was it?
If you just take it as a separate fact, definitely it's disturbing and quite, uneasy for us. Why? I mean, among all the leaders in the world, Jewish leader on the Red Square. But at the same time, if you know what comes after and before that, you would understand that. Again, for Israel, there are no two chances. They always say we have only one chance. When we are attacked, we have to win. We don't have two chances. We don't have territory. We don't have strategic depth. We in between sea and enemy is just very small Israel. So that is why they have to be very strong, and they act very deliberately if anything happens. So therefore, they must understand if Syria and Iran put C-200 and C-300 in Syria against airplanes of Israeli army. So how you handle that? And why it is important? Because if they attack Iran, they would attack it with airplanes. So that means that they have to understand exactly the policy of Russia in Syria, with both Assad regime and both Iranian Revolutionary Guards and those Shiite militia which are stationed in Syria.
But and that's going to be a bit of a controversial question. When Netanyahu comes to Ukraine to meet Volodymyr Zelensky, doesn't he put at risk his, let's say, complex situation and relation with Russia?
I don't see that, absolutely. Why? I mean, President Zelensky is a new phenomena, and very interesting phenomena for everybody. The victor of elections with 73% in democratic country, which nobody question, that's a phenomena itself. So he is from Jewish family. He's not hiding his positive attitude toward Judaism. I mean, he met with all rabbis.
That was one of his first important.
Yes, one of the first meetings. Nothing bad in that, and he is very balanced on that, both on Christian side and Jewish side. But anyhow, I don't see that that could be considered as a kind of negative sign for Putin. Quite opposite. I think they believe that this visit could serve positive purposes, quite sobering for Ukraine to understand how you have to behave, and particularly because Bibi Netanyahu made an effort to be friends with Putin. So they in Moscow may hope that this experience will be delivered to Zelensky. You want peace with Russia, you have to be friends with Putin. Probably this is too much.
A bit too Ukraine right now.
Risky, and we do not expect that it's going to happen. But nevertheless, to listen to such an experienced politician like Bibi, that's I would worth all the time and efforts.
Now, Volodymyr Zelensky said in May that he considers Israel a role model when it comes to self-defense, and you said yourself this attitude of attacking and winning. Quote, "We must become Icelanders in soccer, Israelis in defending our land, Japanese in technology." That's the quote of Volodymyr Zelensky. What's your stance on that?
He's absolutely right. I mean, in Israel, you know, the attitude toward army and how army is structured and what kind of incentives exist for those who serve in army, this is absolutely unique in the world. So, but that means that if in time of need, exactly all the population of Israel, they are trained to fight. And they will fight. So therefore, it's very important to get this experience. Maybe we do not need that exactly duplicate the model in Ukraine, but how to organize this territorial defense and training of civil people. I mean, who are just normal people, not in the army, but to train them to fight if it's necessary, is extremely important. And Israel is very savvy on technologies, including military technologies. For example, they have been doing upgrade of MiG airplanes of Soviet production in many countries for many years. We do have those MiG and Su. So, and Israelis can change electronic equipment on those planes and made them very, very modern, completely different by quality. So probably that could be as well on the table for discussion. So, of course, those kind of to understand Israel, you have to get all these small details which make this nation so strong and so important. It's worth learning, definitely.
Now, and just to conclude this interview, and quickly, according to you, during this meeting, what will be on the agenda? You talked about defense system. What could potentially be on the agenda? Just as a quick
it could be economy too, because we just free trade agreement just entered into force. Free trade means just not free trade, but investment. We do need investment, and a lot of very rich Jews in Israel and outside Israel, so they can facilitate. Definitely to discuss issues how to deal with the United States, what kind of assistance could be provided with Jewish hand in Washington. That's very important. So that's how I see it. Humanitarian issues, defense and security, and trade and investment. Those three pillars are quite enough for both of us to get started. And then if Bibi Netanyahu is elected, and if he is a prime minister, there should be a continuation on each side.
Well, thank you very much for this overview of this Ukraine and Israeli relations. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio today. That was Sergiy Korsunsky, director of the Hennadii Udovenko Diplomatic Academy of Ukraine. Thank you for watching the program, and stay tuned for the rest.